So we're on Simon Sadi Beis. This halacha comes up.
Any chance you can do a quick review of last week since I missed last week?
Oh, last week.
Just a quick review.
Where do we?
Because I missed it.
Oh, yeah. In general, we're talking about. Oh, it's also online, by the way. I can
okay.
I can send it to you. I'll review anyway, but I'll email it to you. Do I have your email?
Yeah, you do.
I have your email.
I got yours.
Yeah. If you want to send me an email to remind me,
Okay,
then
I can do
I'll
that.
for sure do it. But we just talked about what you have to wear when you have to daven. That when you daven, you have to have your whole body covered, your chest covered. Also, like don't think you can daven without wearing a shirt. And you also have to, let's say you're wearing a toga, you have to have something separating between your heart and your privates, like a belt or something like that.
I've seen a lot of people.
Right.
String belts that they tie around.
Right, so that's what we were talking about. That for some, that's called a midas chasidus. It's like a pious thing to do, but you don't really have to do that nowadays. It used to be back in the day, like when you went to meet the king, you would put on these special belts. So it's kind of like I'm meeting the king.
Put a regular leather belt out today.
Yeah, it's fine. Even the band on your underwear, assuming you're not going commando, it's fine. Don't go commando.
Yeah, I don't think that would be appropriate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no one really know about it. If anyone is doing that, don't share. So that's what we talked about. We also talked about basically what it boils down to. Oh, you can't daven in your pajamas. We spoke about. It boils down to
Even at home.
Right, even at home. Right, you have to. When you're davening, we're going to pray in front of the king. We're going to meet the king, so we have to dress the way we would go to meet a respectable person. I think if you're meeting the president, how would you dress?
Certainly not in jammies.
Right, not pajamas. Some people. That's why you see people wear a suit jacket, things like that. And a hat. We talked about that. The reason people wear hats is because back in the day, when you go outside and when you walk and when you meet respectable people, that everyone wore hats. Like, you go look at a picture of a Yankee game from the 20s or the 30s. Everybody's everybody's wearing a hat. So
the question is whether or not that was style of the time kind of thing, or.
Right. No. Yeah. For sure. But at that, also the Mishnah Berurah makes that point that. It really goes after part of it, like how they would go in those lands to meet important people. Like we said, not to wear sandals when you daven, but if you live in India, where maybe you go in front of the prime minister there with sandals, if that's the case, then you could wear sandals when you daven. Hello. Got a seat for you right here.
Oh, look at the crowd. How you doing? How are you?
How you doing? How are you today?
Okay. Where am I going to sit?
We got over here, over there.
Yeah. Okay. That's why I can read lips.
Oh, I'll try to enunciate and speak loud.
Okay.
We were just reviewing last week, so you didn't miss anything. And then, so it's all dependent on the, to some degree, it's dependent on the way people dress in the country. But if, it's the summer and everyone's going around in, a bathing suit, that doesn't mean you can daven in a bathing suit. It's talking about the way you would go if you meet a respectable person. You can even in Israel, where everyone's walking around with sandals and have their shirts open. If they would go to the Knesset or the prime minister, they would probably even almost put on a tie or almost wear a suit. So that you have to keep in mind. Okay, but that was last week, and I'll email you, God willing, the recording of that. So this week, this halacha comes up every day, all the time. And it's actually super complicated, but I think I want to thank Rabbi Bressler this morning for helping me clarify it. Can you daven if you have to go to the bathroom? That's the question we'll be dealing with. And what happens if you do daven when you have to go to the bathroom? And can you learn when you have to go to the bathroom? So the short answer is no. If you have to go to the bathroom, you can't daven. Now, there's actually 3 different levels of needing to go to the bathroom. Okay? The first, level 1, is if you can hold it for 72 minutes. It's a parsa. Parsa is a certain amount of measurement. It's like I don't know it's like a mile, but it's the time it takes for a normal person to walk. A parsa is 72 minutes. So if you can hold it for 72 minutes, that's level 1. Level 2 is you can't hold it for 72 minutes, right? Within 72 minutes, you got to go. And then the third level is bal tashaksu. Do you know there's a prohibition to hold it in if you have to go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
There's a prohibition, nothing to do with davening, nothing to do with praying. But if you hold it in, then you violate this prohibition. One violates the prohibition of bal tashaksu. So the only thing I saw explaining how much you have to go is if you wouldn't hold it in, it would come out. That's bal tashaksu. If you're at that point, then forget davening. Then you have to. One has to go to the bathroom.
What if you're in the middle?
We're going to get to that. That's halacha Beis. We'll get there, God willing. Maybe this week, maybe not. But no, it makes a difference. It's going to be different if you're in Shmona Esrei, if you're in Shema, and that's when it gets complicated. But we'll try to simplify it as much as possible. But regarding Baal Tashaksu, so somebody told me a story of, he saw some of the greatest rabbis, I won't name them, but this person told me he saw when he lived in Israel, he was walking to shul, and one of the greatest rabbis of the generation, meaning in the past 50 years, like big rabbis, was going to the bathroom outside the shul because the bathroom was locked, and he didn't want to violate this prohibition. So he was going. That's what you got to do, right? When it comes to keeping the Torah, you don't care. And he saw actually twice, two different rabbis in Israel who were, I'm talking like big rabbis, not like mid-level big rabbis, but big rabbis were going to the bathroom outside. Most people would think, no, I'm a very important person. I shouldn't do that. I could hold it in. I violate the Torah. No, Torah says you got to go. Actually, there's a rabbinic prohibition, but anyway. Okay, so those are the three levels. One is you can hold it for 72 minutes. Two, you can't hold it for 72 minutes. Three, it's coming out and you're trying your best to hold it in. You're on the parkway in traffic or whatever. Okay, so let's start reading the halachas, and if anything's not clear, please stop me. So, if you have to go to the bathroom, don't daven. Meaning, if you have to go to the bathroom at all, you have any inkling to go, you have to go to the bathroom before davening. I remember when I first came to the kollel here, I had just learned this halacha, and I came to the kollel and I saw before davening everyone goes to the bathroom. I was like, oh, someone's like, yeah, well, they know the halacha. That's why everyone goes to the bathroom before davening. In other places I had davened, they didn't know this halacha, so they weren't, going to the bathroom. But okay. So if you have to go at all, that's meaning any level. You have to go before.
And when you talk about going to the bathroom,
both
in tefillah. Let's say Shabbat Shacharit is I guess if it goes from Musaf, it may be 3 hours. So you mean you're not supposed to go to the bathroom during those 3 hours?
Oh no, you can go to the bathroom. Yeah, no. I was talking about what I was referencing before is like, let's say you're in the middle. You had drank a ton of coffee. You went to the bathroom right before Shemona Esrei, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of Shemona Esrei. You drank 3 cups of coffee, and boom, it hits you again in 3 seconds. So do you stop in the middle of Shemona Esrei, go to the bathroom, and come back? Or what if you're in the middle of Shema? So general rule, we'll get to that. It's going to be in more detail. But if you're in Shemona Esrei, you really never stop, even if you're at the point of Baal Tashaksu where you're really holding it in. Just finish and go. That's really the best thing to do. Okay. But we'll talk about that. But definitely, when we say davening in general, we're talking about Shemona Esrei, the 18 blessing prayer. Okay. But he is going to discuss the other parts of davening. He's going to talk about Shema, different blessings. Even you want to make a shehakol on your coffee, and let's say you have to go to the bathroom. Can you make a shehakol? Right? You're not considered to have a clean body when you have to go to the bathroom. When a person has to go to the bathroom. Fine. So that's Shemona Esrei. So far we're just referencing Shemona Esrei. A little later we're going to talk about those things.
You wash your hands before you daven.
Right. That's actually going to be in 4. You guys have read this already. You quoted Sif Daled, and you quoted Sif Beis. You quoted Sif Daled. Okay. So don't daven. Now, what if you had to go to the bathroom and you davened anyway? So it says your davening is an abomination. Whoa. And you have to daven again. So now when is that? That's when you're not able to hold yourself for 72 minutes, meaning level 2. But if you're able to hold yourself for 72 minutes, level 1, then you fulfilled your obligation if you did it. But you really shouldn't daven until you check yourself first. Okay, so just to summarize what he said, before davening, if you have to go at all, meaning you can hold it for 3 hours, you got that kind of bladder, but you have to go before davening. But if you did daven and when you have to go, if you really had to go, meaning you're not able to hold it for 72 minutes, which is kind of a long time, and you davened, the davening you did doesn't even count because it's considered an abomination that you davened in that state in front of Hashem. But if you just kind of had to go, but you could have held it for more than 72 minutes, then you shouldn't have done that, but your davening counts and you don't have to do it over. Now, you're going to see later, there's also going to be a differentiation between number 1 and number 2. It's considered worse to hold number 2 than number 1, so it might only be number 2 that if you daven in that state, that you're not yotzi b'diavad. But the main thing is to remember, it's hard to. I learned this before a few times, and I was trying to learn it again this morning. It was difficult. The main thing to remember is go to the bathroom before you daven. That's what we're going to take out of here. Main thing, right. Just to go be. And we're talking about Shemona Esrei. Okay, then that was the Shulchan Aruch. The Rama adds, "V'chol hanitzrach l'nekevav aser afilu b'divrei Torah." Whoever needs to go to the bathroom, he can't even learn. Kol zman shegufa meshukatz min hanakavim. All the time that his body is like disgusting because of that. So you're getting sit down to go to shir. If anyone wants to go, please feel free. There's a difference if you already started. Actually, we'll get to that, God willing. But even if you're sitting down to learn, if you have to go to the bathroom, you should go first. It makes it very difficult because yeshiva guys drink a ton of coffee, so you have to balance that. Okay, so now that was the Shulchan Aruch. Let's read the Mishnah Berurah. Al Yispalo. So why can't he daven? What's the reason for this? Tichsiv Hikon Likos Elokecha Yisrael. There's a verse in, I think it's in Amos. It says that you have to prepare to greet Hashem, meaning we have to do preparations before we greet Hashem. This was the reason why people put on the gartel, the little belt before davening, because we're supposed to do preparations before we daven. And to watch yourself when you go to the house of Hashem. And the rabbis derive from these verses, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Shmor nekavecha. You should not have to go to the bathroom when you daven in front of me. So this is really from the Gemara. V'tzarech yesh omrim tedafka legedolim, aval lektana b'diavad ein tzarech lachzor lispal v'yesh chokin. So remember we said that if you do daven and you had to go and you couldn't hold it for 72 minutes, you have to go back and daven again. So when was that? So the Mishnah Berurah cites an opinion that says only if number 2. You had to go and you couldn't hold it. You just like you got to run, and you're like, oh, let me just daven quickly before I go to the bathroom.
Where did number 72 come from?
So that's a parsa. A parsa is a certain distance, that it would take.
You couldn't finish Shemon Esrei in 72 minutes.
Oh no, that's 72 minutes is holding it to go to the bathroom. Meaning, you started daven. You know yourself that it's coming out in 15 minutes, basically, and you decide to daven anyway in 2 minutes, and then you go. So if it was number 2. Mishnah Berurah brings an opinion, you have to go back. Daven again. Your davening doesn't count as like disgusting. If it was number 1 in that same situation, there's an opinion you don't have to go back. But there's an opinion you do have to go back. So what do you do?
Go back.
Why?
Safe.
Well, maybe that's not playing it safe, I'll tell you why. Because bracha levatala, you ever heard the concept of bracha levatala? A blessing in vain. If you make a blessing when you're not required to, you violate the prohibition. One violates the prohibition of saying Hashem's name in vain, which is in next week's Torah portion, 10 Commandments. So what do you do? But maybe davening is different, because when you daven, you're asking for mercy from Hashem. Maybe it's a little different. So what Rav Elyashiv I saw, he suggests to do, something you can do this during the week. This is actually a trick for any time that you're not sure if you, let's say you just totally don't remember if you davened, something like that. I think that's a good case, I'll double check. But anytime you have a question, if you have to daven Shemona Esrei again, what you could do is, there's something called the Tfilas Nadava. Back in the day, people were very holy. They would, you daven required to daven Shachris Mincha Marav 3 times a day. But people were very holy, would want to daven extra davenings. So that's called a Tfilah Nadava, a voluntary prayer. And you could do that, you just felt like in the middle of the day you were inspired, you could say a Shemona Esrei. But we don't do that nowadays because we don't have really kavanah intent when we daven 3 times a day, so why would we add more? But when you could use this concept is if you're not sure, like in this case, you had to go number 1 really bad, and you davened. Now, we got a machlokas here between 2 rabbis. You have to go back and daven again. You don't have to go back and daven again, so what do? So you daven Shemona Esrei, and you make a condition in your head. You say, if I'm required to daven now, let's say it was Mincha. Mincha, you had this situation. You say, I'm going to daven now, and if I really am required to daven, then let this count for Mincha. Now, let's say I'm not required to daven. This will be a Tfilas Nadava. This will be a voluntary prayer. So anytime you're in this situation where you're not sure if you have to go back and daven, you could do this thing where you make a condition, and if you're required to daven, it will count, and if you're not required to daven, it will be a voluntary davening. So that's what I saw Rav Elyashiv on the side of Dirshu suggest to do in this situation.
What if you have a Kaddish coming up after the Amidah?
You should probably answer the Kaddish and then daven after. Usually, those are. We didn't do that. His halach is about right. If you come late, can you start? If you're going to miss the Kaddish, that's talked about also. Okay. Yeah, I think if you can do it in time, if you daven very fast, I guess it's fine. But it's probably better to answer for the Kaddish.
Doesn't sound like a lot of kavanah in that, though.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. Right. Definitely not. I don't know if it's true, but they said there was like a big rabbi once, and he davened a very fast Shemona Esrei. So you hear this?
I did.
Yeah.
Somebody in our shul did that in Bet Tfilah, and they said,
Really?
Because when Hashem's listening, the gates open for a short amount of time, so he wanted to get it all in there fast. Is that?
Oh no, so he gave a different answer. He's like, why are you davening so fast? He's like, I'm smart. It's like I can do what takes you 10 minutes. I can do in 5, something like that.
Okay.
Something like that. I doubt it's a true story. But
Right.
it's one of those stories. Okay. Fine. Right, and we said that. Fine. Okay. So hilach parsa. What's a parsa? It's when we say hu arba milin. That's 4 mil, which is another distance to walk. Shehu shir shav. She says a parsa is 72 minutes. Yachal lahamid wrote salomer me'es haschalas hatfila haya b'koach l'shel shir zeh. Umashma afilu im achar kach tekev achar tefila halach v'asot tzracha v'haya b'toch shir hazeh yotze b'diavad. So it sounds like, right, let's say you start davening and you had to go, but it wasn't, the emergency. It was level 1. It wasn't even level 2. You could have held it for a long time. And then after Shemona Esrei, you went to the bathroom right away. So even that's fine. You fulfilled your obligation. Right? Okay. Kevin shehu margish ba'atzmo k'tzash etzarach l'kev afilu imal yidei zeh shenake es atzmo le'yeh yuchal lispal matzibur afilu hachi tov v'yuz lispal b'yechidi b'guf naki. What's better? Let's say you kind of have to go to the bathroom, level 1, right? You could hold it for a long time, but you have a minion, and the bathrooms only have 2 stalls here, and everyone just drank lemonade. Everyone's waiting. And if you wait for the bathroom, you're going to miss the minyan. So technically we said, if you daven and you have to go to the bathroom at this level, you fulfill the obligation. So is it better to go to the bathroom and miss the minyan? Or daven with the minyan, we have to go to the bathroom a little? Any opinions? Any guesses?
Daven with the minion.
No. Sorry. No, it's better. He says it's better to daven, to go to the bathroom and then not daven with a minion. Now,
I thought you're supposed to do the Shemona Esrei as part of a group together, start at the same time.
right. But if you
can't,
but here you have something competing, meaning you have to go to the bathroom, and you're not supposed to daven when you have to go to the bathroom. Even if you did daven, your tefillah would count. It's more important that you daven not having to go than to daven with a minion. Now, what about this case? It says, Amnon imroa sha'ayid ezeh shivduk yavor zman tefillah l'gamrei. What if you have to go again, level 1? You can hold it for a long time, but you still have to go. And you're looking at the clock, and there's 5 minutes left until you can daven mincha, right? And you can either daven Shemona Esrei or you go to the bathroom. You can't do both. What do you do?
Go to the bathroom.
No, trick.
0 for 2.
In that case, davening on the proper time is more important.
If you're looking at the clock, that means you really do have to go.
No, you're looking at the clock because let's say you can only daven mincha until 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. because the sun's set and it's too late to daven. Now it's 5:55, and you could do a Shemona Esrei in 4 minutes, and you could just make it in. But if you go to the bathroom, it's not going to happen. So, what you see from here is something in the Mishnah Berurah we've mentioned before, that what's more important, davening with a minyan or davening in the proper time?
With a minion.
Nope.
Put it together with 0 for 3.
There are people who do that, but they're totally incorrect. It's clear from the Shulchan Aruch we saw several weeks ago, said that it's more important to daven at the proper time than it is with a minyan. So let's say you have places where they daven Shemona Esrei sometime Shabbos morning, at 11 a.m. So, but you can only daven Shemona Esrei, until let's say 10:40. So you have an option. I can finish Shemona Esrei before 10:40 a.m. without a minyan because they're still up to Shochenat, they're singing everything, or you could wait and daven at the improper time and daven with a minyan. So the Shulchan Aruch says it's better to daven at the proper time. That's more of a mitzvah than to daven with a minyan. Right? Anytime you have these competing things, you always have to look like what's more important. So it comes out that first we have davening in the proper time, and then it's the bathroom, right? Because even if you have to go a little bit, it's better to daven in the proper time. But if you have to go to the bathroom, it's better than to daven with a minyan. I mentioned this story last week that my rabbi, when he was a young man, was at a wedding, and yeshiva bachram daven with a hat and jacket, and he didn't have his hat, so he davened with a minyan without his hat. And his Rav Hutner came up to him and said, "Yeshiva bachar, it's more important that you daven with a hat and jacket than with a minyan." So even that he felt was more important than davening with a minyan. Now again, this was him because for yeshiva, so in his community, you wear a hat and jacket. like Hasidim, certain Hasidim, they on Shabbos they wouldn't daven without a shtreimel. I daven without a shtreimel. It doesn't bother me. But for his community where he's coming from, so there's always a question of what's the most important.
You mentioned that if the minyan is not going to be saying Shemona Esrei on time, then you can say it on your own. But what happens to the rest of the people in the minyan then? Shouldn't they be doing it also?
They should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the rest of them are all saying it at the wrong time.
Correct, they're wrong. I'll tell you where it came from was when the Chassidus first started in the 1700s. They tried to get more, Judaism. I'd say a lot of more internal things. They focused a lot on intent when doing mitzvahs and trying to make it more meaningful Judaism. So a lot of the holy rabbis, what they did is that they would wake up very early, and they would go to the mikvah first. Then they would study Kabbalah. Then they would recite Psalms, and then they would say it very carefully, and they would daven Pesukei de Zimra very slowly, and they would say every single word. And by the time these holy rabbis got to davening Shacharis, it was already 11 o'clock. So these were very holy people, and it could be they had Kabbalistic spiritual reasons for doing it. But what happened as the generations went on is that people just started taking the bad practice of, I don't want to say bad, they're very holy people. What I meant to say is that they started taking the practice of davening late,
right,
except they're just getting up at 10:30. They're not getting up at 5 a.m. and going to the mikvah and saying Tehillim and learning Kabbalah and doing all this stuff. So actually, if you see some of the Sfarim written against early Hasidim, that was one of the things that the rabbis were writing against them, is you have to daven in the right time. You can't change the halachos. This was like a debate between, I don't want to generalize too much, but there was this aspect of the debate between Hasidim and what you call the yeshiva world that Rav Chaim Volozhiner wrote very strongly against, meaning when you do a mitzvah, right?
How late can you daven Shachris?
It's a third of the 4 hours, in 4 halachic hours into the day, so it varies during the time of the year.
Like now?
I would have to look it up. If you go on your phone to myzmanim.com, go to myzmanim.com, MYZMANIM.
That's me.
.com. Yeah, and you put in your zip code 07726.
Yeah.
It'll tell you what time, because it changes every day.
Oh.
But I'm going to guess it's sometime between 10 and 11. It's usually around there. It's pretty vague, but
it goes that late.
Yeah.
10 or 11.
Yeah. If you happen to wake up late, then you could daven until noon. If you woke up late by accident.
Like I get up at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, you're good. But you make sure you say Shema, because Shema you have to say earlier. So Shema is important to say also.
What's the latest time you can say Shema?
It's usually between 9 and 10, but also myzmanim.com. you can print out a month at a time. So it helps. If you print it out, I'll show you what. I'll try to print off and bring it tomorrow. Was I supposed to bring something to show you today? I don't remember if I said last night. I forgot. I don't remember. So I was just saying before about Hasidim in the yeshiva world. So when you do a mitzvah, what's more important, the kavanah, the intent you have to do the mitzvah and get close to Hashem, or the actual mitzvah? So Rav Chaim Volozhiner was saying is that you have to do the laws of the mitzvah correctly. Meaning, if it's sukkos and you take a lemon and a branch you found on the tree, but you have such intent that you want to get close to Hashem and you want to do all you can to serve Hashem, that's a very nice thought, but you did absolutely nothing. You did not fulfill the mitzvah of taking a lulav and an esrog. So he says the main thing is to actually do the mitzvah. Now, of course, any added intent that you have makes the mitzvah tremendously better. And
doing mitzvah without the intent, accidentally without meaning.
Right, so that's a big debate. There's a big debate in the Gemara of if you fulfill the mitzvah, if you don't have any intent to fulfill the mitzvah. Right?
You picked up the intro by accident, you mean?
Right, something like that, or you're just or you're teaching somebody how to shake it. I think that's an example in the Gemara. You're teaching someone how to blow a shofar, and it happens to be Rosh Hashanah. Did you fulfill the mitzvah? So usually the way we paskin is that when it comes to rabbinic mitzvahs, you fulfill the mitzvah if you didn't have intent. And when it comes to a biblical mitzvah, if you did not have intent, you don't fulfill the command. You don't fulfill the mitzvah.
Let me ask you: if you get up,
this is a caveat.
I'm sorry. I'm
Is
sorry.
that okay?
If you get up sometimes in the middle of the night, could you say prayers?
Yeah, you should wash your hands 3 times, one on each, and you could say prayers. Yeah,
Yeah.
you pray to Hashem whenever you want. I'm talking at Shemona Esrei. You shouldn't do whenever you want, but you should definitely pray to Hashem whenever you want. You can definitely pray to Hashem.
Like a Shema,
You can say Shema whenever you want. Yeah.
whatever you want.
Yeah. You only fulfill the mitzvah of Shema at the proper time. But you could always say, saying Shema is just saying that Hashem is one. That's a very great thing to say. But to fulfill when the Torah commands us to say Shema, that's just in the morning and the evening.
Oh, but if you get up any time, you could say it. If you
Of course,
feel like saying
yeah,
it.
for sure. It's a verse in the Torah. It's praiseworthy to daven to Hashem, much, and to always thank Hashem and whatnot.
You could daven any time you want.
Oh no! So we're only talking about Shemona Esrei here, right? Yeah, Shemona Esrei. This is just Shemona Esrei. Shemona Esrei specifically. That's when you're going into the Holy of Holies and you're standing in front of Hashem. Like picture yourself. You're not, God forbid, Hashem doesn't have a form or an image, but you're speaking to the King. But right. So the issue, just to get back again 1 second with Hasidim and that. So the issue is when you daven in the proper time, that's like taking the lemon and the tree. You're not doing anything. You're not fulfilling the mitzvah.
That prayer in the morning that you say, you thank Hashem for waking up.
Moda'ani.
You could say that any time you want. You get up.
You can. I don't know if you have to say it when you get up in the middle of the night. I have to check on that.
But if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
There's no prohibition as too much praying.
No.
I don't know if I don't know if I'm gonna thank Hashem at 3 a.m. if I have to go to the bathroom. I'm waking up to do that.
No, you should go to the bathroom first and wash your hands, and then.
Right.
But it's the most important thing is when you daven, assuming you're davening in the proper time, is to daven with intent, thinking that everything comes to Hashem. It says we're supposed to daven like a poor person who's begging for bread. We have nothing, and you're going to a rich man's house, and you're knocking on the door, and please give me some bread. I have nothing to eat. That's how we're supposed to talk to Hashem and mean it. They have all these like segulas. You give charity to this organization, and you'll have everything you want. You'll become successful, and you'll have 30 kids, and you'll whatever. But the main thing is if you give to my organization, that will happen. But other organizations, not so much. But the main thing is to daven to Hashem. You don't need all these segulas and all these, quote unquote, magic tricks. The most impactful thing is to daven to Hashem with intent and feeling. But, okay. So I think I finished that in spurts. Fine.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So let's see where we're at. What time is it? Let's just finish this. So we said afilu b'divrei Torah, v'kol shechem b'kriyas shema u'shar brachos b'diavad mashma b'divrei pri megadim de'ein tzarich lachzor v'likros because of Ramban from Mechamas shagufo meshukatz afilu im eina mesava kol kach shibu shum bal deshak so kevin she'ena yachol amod atzmo at parsa mutter afilu b'kriyas shema u'b'shar so we're going to v'hu yimim lamed Torah. So let's say we were talking about Shemona Esrei till now. What about Shema? What if you want to make a bracha on something? You have to go a little bit. Again, level 1. You have to go a little bit. Whatever. Do you have to go to the bathroom before you say Shema? Make a shahakol. Sit down and learn. So the Mishnah Berurah brings a dispute over here between two opinions. So preferably you should go if you can. Right. Okay. Let me just finish this line, then we'll finish. V'im hu malamed Torah l'rabim udorish u'be'emtze nitztarich l'nekavim afilu gedol mutter lo lasos atzman debal deshaksu hu rak yisur derbanim v'nei kavod abrios nitcha. This is very interesting. We mentioned that level 3, which was it's not coming out because you're holding it in, right? You really, really got to go. I can sort of relate to this now. If you're teaching Torah to people, you don't have to stop to go, because teaching Torah to people, it's like a very big mitzvah. So even if you really, really have to go because you've been drinking coffee, you don't have to stop, in the middle, or you don't have to. I think even before, so maybe even before you start, you don't have to go if it's going to detract you from what you are doing. The reason is because really this is a rabbinic prohibition about the shaksu. Of holding it in. It's not a biblical prohibition to hold it in, and for a rabbinic prohibition, because of kavod abrios, which is you don't want to embarrass yourself. We'll talk about this a little more maybe next week. That if you have to go, but it'll be very embarrassing to leave the shul in the middle, then that might be an exception. You actually don't have to go in that situation, but we'll talk. The end. Any questions?
Yes,